Kitco Mining special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Faraday Copper.
Arras Minerals is focused on Kazakhstan, with the established land base of 3,000 square kilometers. Tim Barry is CEO. Tim, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you very much.
Let's go macro first because it was in your presentation. Tell us about copper. Why do you think it's bright?
Well, it's a well-beaten drum. I think there's two things that are driving it. Obviously, demand with green technology, etc. But I think the other thing, and this is something that doesn't seem to get the discussion that's actually needed, is the big producing copper assets are getting old and tired. And to replace an Escondida or a Chuquicamata, it's just not happening. We're not finding those super giant copper deposits. And even if you do, trying to get one in production now is very difficult. So we've got the perfect storm of, demand increasing and supply decreasing. And I think the case for copper, there's no other substitute. So it's a great commodity.
What are you focused on Kazakhstan? Or more importantly, why are you in Kazakhstan?
Well, so we came to Kazakhstan. I was running a company called Silver Bull. It's got some projects in northern Mexico. Unfortunately, it ended up in a blockade, which is still ongoing. So that prompted me to go looking for another asset. And when I started looking for another asset, I sort of had some criteria. I think geologists have a pretty good idea where the big supergiant deposits live. Obviously the Americas, Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, and then Central Asia. And a little unknown fact that seems to have gone under the radar for most people is in 2018, Kazakhstan completely revised its mining law to resemble that of Western Australia, which is, one of the best mining laws in the world. And when you get that happening, coupled with just the sheer prospectivity of the country and the stated aim by the government saying all the right things, it was a very attractive destination.
People know Kazakhstan, they're a uranium giant, but maybe you could talk about some of the operating mines in the area.
Sure. So here's some interesting facts about Kazakhstan. So number 1 in the world for uranium, number 2 for chromite, number 3 for potash, number 10 in the world for copper production, number 12 for iron ore production, 2 million barrels a day of oil going out. And you look at a company like Chevron. The Tengiz field in western Kazakhstan is their largest asset. Glencore, 20% of its annual revenue comes from Kazakhstan. It's a place that produces super giant deposits. So from a copper porphyry perspective, there's probably the biggest deposit there right now is called Aktagai. That's a 6 billion tonne porphyry, probably going bigger. But there's 34 known porphyry deposits in the country, and I'd say 8 of them are over 1 billion tonnes plus, which speaks to real fertility in the area.
Let's talk a little bit more about the government and stakeholder relations as well too. There's to the south of you, there's Kyrgyzstan, which is kind of less popular with miners, just what happened with Kumtor and Centerra. But talk about the government that's there, how it's supportive of mining, and then also talk about the communities themselves.
Yeah, sure. So I'd say, Kazakhstan suffers from growing up in a bad neighborhood. It's, obviously it's got Russia to the north, China to the east, and then Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan to the south. And it kind of gets lumped in with all the stans. However, the government itself, I have to say, is pushing forward a lot of very positive reforms, starting with actually today, there's a presidential election going on in Kazakhstan, and they just amended the constitution where a president now can only sit for one term. They're trying to get away from the strong man, I'm the president for life type approach. There's a real push within the country to start sharing the opportunities a little more. It was a very closed kind of system. And, it's starting with, say, the reform of the mining law. And to show you that it's working, in the decade before the law was enacted in June 2018, 30 mineral licenses were issued. You basically had to know somebody to get a mineral license. Between 2018 and 2019, 300 mineral licenses were issued. And it's largely locals who have the gumption to get out and stake some ground. So I think we're sort of seeing that kind of opportunity starting to filter down to Kazakhs themselves. And, I've been very surprised at the level of education in the country. Lots of Kazakhs travel overseas and educated in Russia, China, the West. And they're coming back because I think they see the opportunity.
Talk about the project. What's the work that's been done to date?
So what got us into the country was a project called Beskauga, which is a copper gold project about 3 hours to the east of Astana, which is the capital city. This was owned, or still is owned, by a private Swiss group called Copperbelt. And the deal we struck with Copperbelt was we get it's a 4-year option to purchase. So that means over 4 years we get to conduct exploration, see if we like what's in the ground, and then at the end of that period we have a choice. We either buy the project 100% for $15 million US, or we walk away and hand the project back. So that project, we've put out a 43101 resource. It's about 200 million tonnes at 0.5 gram gold, 0.3 copper. And our view is this thing has a whole lot of room to grow. So we didn't come into the project for what Beskauga is. We came in for what we think could be there. But at the same time, I'm an exploration geologist by training. You can't help but stick your head out of the trench every now and again and take a look at what else is out there. And so in addition to Beskauga, we've staked an additional 9 mineral licenses. All of them were staked for good reasons. We think we've got at least another 5 copper gold porphyry targets on our licenses. And this has turned not only into a single deposit opportunity, but I think into a regional play.
We should have mentioned it when we were talking about Kazakhstan, but you've actually made the move to Kazakhstan. So you're somebody that is on site, and then you're in the country.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer that you got to be hands-on with your project. I like small teams of competent people, and in order for that to effectively work, you've got to be there and have solid input as to what's going on the ground. However, we recognise that if I move to Kazakhstan, that obviously creates a gap in the space with regards to attending to the market needs. Mm-hmm. So what we've done is we've split the role of president and CEO, and we've brought on Darren Klink as the president. Darren's based in Vancouver, very well-known guy in the mining business, very well respected, and he's shouldering a lot of the marketing load, and particularly in North America, and that kind of frees me up to pretend that I'm still a geologist and occasionally do some marketing as well.
What's your share structure right now at Arras?
So we've just had a private placement by Tech for 3 million come in. So that brings us up to 65 million shares outstanding, fully diluted. And I guess we've passed the hat to existing shareholders as well. We've got a really great group of individuals that came into Arras when it was a private entity. We listed in August, and their support has just meant we can pass the hat on the back of tech coming in, and we're fully financed for 2023.
Tim, can you talk about the infrastructure on the project?
Sure. I've worked all over the world, 7 years in Africa, 10 years in North and South America. And one of the challenges I've always had with a lot of these places is you've got to find a tier 1 project for these things to work. This is not the case in Kazakhstan. The infrastructure is off the charts good. So our project's based in the small town of Beskauga. It's about 150,000 people. And the town's there purely to service the 5th largest coal mine in the world, which is right beside the town. And so you've got a trained workforce right there. Our project's about 40 kilometres from the town. But what comes with the coal mine is there's heavy rail that goes everywhere. There's 7.5 gigawatts of power that are generated in the immediate area. To that point, Beskauga became one of the largest Bitcoin mining areas due to the cheap power and the cold temperatures. So you've got a trained workforce, you've got road access right to the project. We've got the highest voltage power lines literally going right beside Beskauga, 1100 kVA power lines, and of course the heavy rail.
Lastly, Tim, milestones over the next 12 months.
So our plan is very much to keep drilling. As I was saying, one of the nice things about Kazakhstan is the very cheap cost of drilling. So all in, including assays, we're drilling for about $125 a metre. And what that gives us is the ability to really test ideas and targets thoroughly. So a $5 million drill program will get you 35 to 40,000 metres of drilling. The same $5 million program, say in a jurisdiction like the Yukon or high in the Andes, you'll get a 5,000 metre drill program out of it. So that allows us to really go after targets, drill the necessarily deep holes, and because of that, we'll have a constant news flow over the next 12 months.
Tim, thanks for telling the story.
Thank you very much.
My name is Michael McRae. You're watching Kitco Mining's coverage of Deutsche Goldmesse here in Frankfurt.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Faraday Copper.